Given the grave concerns surrounding the CEO of Dalian and former 2021 People's Party of Canada candidate David Yeo, the committee hold one meeting and call first the Deputy Minister of National Defence, Bill Matthews.
Yes, Mr. Barrett.
So this could find easy support here, but we need to amend it to include the minister and the individual, Mr. Yeo, if that's how you pronounce his name.
This guy's garage. Like and subscribe.
Our witness, Mr. Mark Weber, National President of the Customs Immigration Union, and welcome back. I appreciate you being able to accommodate us so quickly, and thank you for joining us once again.
Chair?
Yes.
Chair?
Is this a point of order, Ms. Yip?
Yes, it's a point of order. We've had 6 meetings already on the ArriveCAN report from the Auditor General, and we're going to have 9 by the end of the week. But we've yet to see a work plan or witness list. I would really appreciate it if you could distribute the work plan and witness list.
Sure, Ms. Yip. You have what I have to date.
On the same point of order, Chair?
Sure, these are not points of orders, but go ahead, Ms. Khalid.
Well, perhaps it's a point of clarification. As we are working quite tirelessly under your leadership in this committee, Chair, it's easier for us to know what we're planning for and to know what the ultimate conclusion is as well.
You provided us with opening remarks the other day. We don't need you to repeat those. We've heard them, and we have copies. So I'm going to go directly to questions. I'm going to begin with Ms. Block, who will have the floor.
So can you provide for this committee, if the government wasn't developing this app to assist frontline workers and to keep our borders safe, can you provide any sort of comment on what you believe the point of this app was?
Thank you for the question. I think to answer the question at large, the app and its development long-term, we believe that the goal of the app is to replace officers. Specifically, the result of that is that it makes our borders less secure. It eliminates interactions that our officers have with travelers. We've seen comments from the CBSA in the media. We've seen promotional videos and such, with examples such as a traveler driving up to the border and flashing their phone at a screen, and the gate opens and they drive through, and the tagline is something to the effect of, "I can't believe I just cleared customs." And when you think about what that actually means, I don't know if the agency is waiting for a smuggler or someone trying to bring something into Canada that we don't want to come in to self-declare. It's never going to happen, right? I hear this from our frontline officers daily. Even though we are in the midst of contract negotiations, we've been working under an expired contract for almost 2 years, and obviously pay benefits. All those things are part of their concerns. One of their main concerns remains border security. Every day they see it being eroded. It's concerning for all Canadians. It's very difficult circumstances for our members to be working in.
You also mentioned that the ArriveCAN app actually created issues for frontline officers and made their job more difficult. And you testified that the implementation of the app turned frontline officers into IT consultants rather than border officers. And while we've seen that this career change may have been very lucrative under this government, it certainly doesn't help us to maintain safe and secure borders, as we have seen over the last couple of years. So can you describe for us how it actually made life more difficult for our frontline officers?
I mean, given that it was made mandatory, our officers spent almost all of their time helping people complete the app. We had ports with no Wi-Fi. We had people coming into the office having to print it out and do it. We had travelers who refused to do it, travelers who didn't know how to do it, travelers who didn't have smartphones. All of these things that were very obvious to the officers working the front line that would not work. But again, we weren't consulted in the development. No one asked anyone working at the border how this would work at the border.
Briefly.
So we know that the app still exists. People have the option to use it. Given what you've shared with us today, do you think it is prudent for the CBSA to continue to fund this project or this app while ignoring the pressing issues facing our frontline officers?
I think funding always has to go first and foremost to officers, especially with the deficit that we have in frontline staff. again, we're not dinosaurs. We know that technology has its uses, but it has to be there to assist officers. If the idea is that technology replaces officers, that's a big concern security-wise for all Canadians.
Can you please tell us what you have heard from your union members in terms of how ArriveCAN provided efficiencies to the previous paper-based system?
Thank you. In terms of the information that we needed for our purposes for customs officers, really all we needed was to be able to verify that the person was vaccinated, which everyone was able to do simply by showing us their vaccination on their phone or a printed out copy. All of the other information that ArriveCAN had us made mandatory for us to acquire wasn't for us. That was for the Public Health Agency of Canada. So for us, it seemed like we were spending our time collecting information for others that in large part we don't know or don't think was used. Questions such as, what hotel will you be staying at? What's the address of where you're going to be staying? As far as I know, no one verified where anyone was staying. The hundreds of hours that our officers spent helping people collect this information at the border, we don't believe was really used at all.
So, do you feel that this allowed officers to perhaps focus more on specialized tasks at all?
No, again, the majority of our officers' time during COVID was helping people complete the app, making sure they completed the app. One of the bigger issues we had was that we're not considered peace officers under the Quarantine Act either, which is something I'm hoping is looked into before. I mean, ideally, we don't have another pandemic, but I think it would be naive to think there isn't going to be one, is something we absolutely do need as frontline officers who are, stopping people at the border from coming in when they are sick.
Do you believe we should go back to a paper-based system?
Paper-based specifically for gathering COVID-related information, or do you mean in general for customs purposes?
In general.
In general, there's uses to that. There's uses to an automated system. One of the uses, an app like ArriveCAN, we can see being worthwhile is if people could do their declaration on the ArriveCAN app, and that would be there for the officer to look at when the traveler presents themselves to the officer. That would be useful. Right now, the difficulty that we're seeing with it, though, is that the ArriveCAN app and other technologies they have at airports, such as pick machines, are being used to entirely replace the officer, where you're depending on travelers to, I guess, hopefully self-declare if they're planning on bringing something in that we don't want to get in.
So you feel there's still value in using the app and seeing an officer?
Yeah, again, technologies are useful as long as there is that interaction with the officer and there's an officer there. Yes, we're open to any technologies that could help. Right now, what ArriveCAN is being used for and as it's being used is not useful in terms of our border processes or keeping Canadians safe.
Do you think that going back to a paper-based system would, well, I think you did kind of answer this question, to reduce wait times at the border crossings and airports?
It could. Again, to reduce wait times, you need people at border crossings and airports. That's the main thing you could do. There's nothing that's as efficient or secure as a properly staffed border. We see this at airports with the introduction of pick machines, which have now largely replaced officers. The idea was that it would speed up the process, and now we see the same lineups are longer, waiting to deal with a pick machine rather than an officer. So if the technology is used with an officer, there's usefulness to it. If not, we really don't see the point.
Okay. Well, thank you. I'd like to put forward a motion at this point that given the grave concerns surrounding the CEO of Dalian and former 2021 People's Party of Canada candidate David Yeo, the committee hold one meeting and call first the Deputy Minister of National Defence, Bill Matthews, 2, the Assistant Deputy Minister Material, Troy Crosby, and 3, Assistant Deputy Minister Human Resources Civilian, Isabel Desmarty.
Thank you, Ms. Yip. The clerk has received that. We'll disseminate it. Mr. Weber, I apologize. We're going to try to get to this quickly, I hope. Yes, Mr. Barrett.
So this could find easy support here, but we need to amend it to include the minister and the individual, Mr. Yao, if that's how you pronounce his name, it seems to be an easy add. The subject of the motion should be invited to appear as a witness, along with the minister, because in our Westminster system, ministerial accountability is the cornerstone of that. So I'll put forward both of those as amendments to the motion, Chair.
I'm supporting the motion. I also think the amendment makes sense. I think we can dispense of this rapidly, and hopefully we can move back to witness testimony.
So I'm wondering, if it would be more practical for us to just focus on the people that can actually answer the questions rather than going down a partisan, liberals are the reason why the whole world is wrong kind of path, and just try to get to the bottom of this by using the Deputy Minister, Mr. Yao, as a witness on this.
Our objection was the way in which the motion was sprung on us at the last meeting, and I'm glad to see that.
It goes without saying, because ministerial accountability is important, and the CEO of Dalian, considering this scope of contracts they received since 2004, the quantity of contracts they received, I think it's important for them to be invited. Thank you.
Chair, could I ask for a quick suspension so that Madame Sinclair-Deganey can receive the motion in French?
Sure, I'll suspend then.
Rappel au règlement.
All have in your email boxes the motion dans les deux langues officielles.
Just going with the rules of this committee, it is not normal for us to have ministers appear before public accounts.
No, Ms. Khalid, you're welcome to put your hand up and to raise this. This is not a point of order, and while it is not the practice, nor is it unheard of,
So as I was indicating, Mr. Chair, before the interruption, is that the buck stops with the minister in charge, and the buck stops ultimately with the Prime Minister of Canada. What I have been seeing over the past several months, as we have literally pulled away layer by layer of this proverbial onion to discover the true rot of this particular scam, is that what I'm hearing from my Liberal colleagues is the whole concept known as plausible deniability. We've heard from presidents, we've heard from deputy ministers, that notwithstanding the raging fire that was this Arrive scam within their various departments, no one felt it prudent enough to inform ministers.
I'm so sorry, Chair.
Ms. Khalid, you can be
It's
sorry all
very
you want, but what is
unfortunate
your
that
point of order?
Chair, this is a respectful parliamentary committee meeting, and it's not fair for members to be calling other members' names and basically character maligning them. This is absolutely unfair, Chair, and I think that you should have intervened.
Thank you very much, Mr. Brock. I'd ask you to get to the point of the intervention addressing the amendment.
My point is that the Canadians that I'm engaging with, Mr. Chair, from coast to coast, are wondering why there's this proverbial firewall between the scandal and the government, the Prime Minister and the ministers. So it emphasizes the point even more so that we definitely need to hear directly from the ministers.
Thank you. I'm calling the vote now on the amendment. Madam Clerk.
Shall the amendment proposed by Mr. Barrett carry? Ms. Sidhu?
Yes. Yes, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Batiste?
Yes.
Ms. Khalid?
Yes.
Ms. Shanahan?
Yes.
Ms. Yip?
Yes.
Mr. Brock?
We.
Ms. Block?
Yes.
Mr. Barrett?
Yes.
Madame Sinclair-Deganey?
Oui.
Mr. Julian?
Yes, and I guess that makes it unanimous.
10 yeas.
10 years. Very good. I'll move now. Any speakers to the motion? Seeing none, Clerk, please call the vote on the motion as amended.
Shall the motion proposed by Ms. Yip as amended carry? Ms. Sidhu?
Yes.
Mr. Batiste?
Yes.
Ms. Khalid,
Yes.
Ms. Shanahan,
Yes.
Ms. Yip,
Yes.
Mr. Brock,
Yes.
Ms. Block,
Yes.
Mr. Barrett,
Yes.
Madame Saint-Clair de Gagné,
Oui.
Mr. Julian.
L'unanimité encore? Oui.
10 yeas.
Très bien. Yes, Mr. Julian, I'd like to wait for the clerk just to be sure.
Thank you, Chair. A couple of the narratives that have been circulated here in Ottawa across Canada is one that this ArriveCAN app saved lives. From the Prime Minister down to ministers, down to rank and file Liberal members, they've all claimed that. It has recently been debunked by some Liberal members who have a medical background, as well as the Public Health Department. There was no empirical evidence that it saved lives. What do you feel, sir, as the union president, with respect to some of the concerns along those lines? Do you feel personally that the app, in fact, did save lives?
Difficult for us to tell. Again, our officers' jobs during the pandemic were largely to collect information for another agency. The app did a poor job of collecting it, so it was really an uphill battle to keep the border moving and to help people provide the information that was legally required for them to provide to get through the border. There was no way around it for us.
You, in a response to a question put to you by Ms. Block about how that $60 million could have been better utilized at your agency, I think you referenced upwards to 500 to 600 new officers could be hired. At this current pace right now, what is the CBSA operating at in terms of a management deficit, a frontline officer deficit?
Again, between 2,000 and 3,000 short countrywide. We can graduate under 600. I think we have one college. If they graduate the maximum number of officers per year, it's approximately 592 per year. They're not at maximum because we don't have enough people to take from the line to train them. That's how short it is.
Another erroneous narrative from Justin Trudeau, our Prime Minister, is that he was responsible for adding thousands of new positions to the CBSA. I think it's inaccurate because he often says that it was the Harper government that slashed frontline officers. But you were asked that question essentially when you appeared at SECU. The question was, over the last 8 years, we know that the current Liberal government added only 25 frontline officers to the CBSA. Is that correct?
Those numbers sound about correct, yes.
25 officers. Okay. And that's why we have the porous borders. That's why we have an influx of illegal guns. That's why we have containers that are not being properly scanned. That's why we have a problem with opiates entering into our country. That's why we have a problem with car thefts. Not enough resources to utilize the technology that does exist. There is no current appetite with this current Justin Trudeau government to properly secure our borders. Is that an accurate statement, sir?
I would say the lack of staff has made everything that you've mentioned more acute. Absolutely, yes.
Do you feel that the current president, Aaron O'Gorman, has engaged the union in a meaningful way or has made any meaningful progress for frontline officers?
In terms of hiring more staff, I'm not aware. Again, she's the president of the CBSA. The budget being what it is, I believe there's a limit to how many officers can be graduated given the money that is available. In terms of advancing some other issues around the toxicity at workplaces, there has been some positive. I have to remain positive and keep trying at it. I've been doing this a long time. I do see hope there, yes.
We talked about punitive correctional measures being utilized across the board, particularly at the CBSA. We know that there are two individuals who deem themselves to be whistleblowers who used to work at the CBSA and brought forth evidence implicating people from the CBSA, including not only past President Osowski, but current President O'Gorman, down to Canada's Chief Technology Officer, Min Doan, who's now been accused of deleting up to 30 1,000 emails surrounding his involvement in the ArriveCAN scam, have not been disciplined at all, but yet 2 individuals who pointed fingers have been. How do you feel as a union president in terms of the measures taken by literally President O'Gorman and instructing presidents and deputy ministers of the other ministries?
Difficult to know. We're not on the inside of the investigation. Again, we see this with our members all the time. Who is on leave without pay pending the outcome of an investigation? What is investigated? Who is interviewed? All of those things often seem quite arbitrary to us as well.
On the face of this outrageous fleecing of taxpayers, did any frontline border officers get a performance bonus like management did?
None of our members have ever received one of those.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Concerning ArriveCAN, I would like to know if you received in-house complaints, questions, and doubts that were raised within the union concerning from certain employees.
Our members contacted us daily throughout the pandemic about their concerns around ArriveCAN. Extreme frustration, I think, would best describe the experience for our officers, getting it to work, not really having the authority to, again, as peace officers under the Quarantine Act, to really stop anyone, not having the ability to issue fines. When I said in an earlier committee appearance, IT consultants, that's really what their jobs became in large part during the pandemic.
Were there complaints, suspicions concerning the deployment of the application? Not necessarily the application itself, but the way in which it was deployed. I know, for example, that this concerns managers and not officers when it comes to decisions concerning consultants. But were there any complaints concerning those who were involved in the deployment of this application?
When we were using it early on in the pandemic, no. Since what's come out, obviously, I do hear from members about the whole procurement process and the decision-making around that, but at the time, no.
Could you tell us more about what you've been hearing recently about the procurement process?
Watched a lot of the testimony. They watched me give testimony here. We all really want to know what happened. It is concerning. Again, one of the big things the union would like is to see, and I appeared at another subcommittee around Bill C-20, which is the Public Complaints and Review Commission. One of the things we pushed for there was an ability for members to use it, so when we see wrongdoing that we're able to bring it forward as well. Currently, we're really lacking the protections or the mechanism to do that. It's something that we think is important to have in place if we want to see organizational change. I mean, surely, everyone would want to know when things are going wrong at the agency. Right now, the mechanism we have for that is for me to bring it forward to managerial counterparts at CBSA, and as I said earlier, that just largely seems to disappear after I say it.
Facilitating the flow of legitimate travelers and trade, the border service officers that I've had the opportunity to interact with. As a member of the traveling public, it's always stressful, whether at airports, but I frequently have the opportunity to interact with them in their professional capacity when I'm crossing at land borders in Prescott and Thousand Islands at the Lansdowne Port of Entry in my community. Outstanding professionalism, and I know because I speak with them, they're members of my community, they're my neighbors, that it's a stressful job. And the job has not been made easier by this $60 million Arrive scam. So I have so when I would cross into the United States, and the question is on COVID-19 wasn't, have you completed the ArriveCAN app or its equivalent? Are you vaccinated for COVID-19? Yep. Okay. Any firearms in the vehicle? And that process where they would detect deception or interdict firearms if they believed that they were there, that would occur. Why is it that the government believed that your officers couldn't be trusted to use their same training and techniques with respect to determining if someone was being deceptive about having been vaccinated, and instead spent $60 million on an app where they could scan in the documents?
I wish I had the answer to that question. I think over the years, an over-reliance on technology has been built up. It started with the automated machines at the airport, as I said, which the initial plan around that was for people to self-declare and for us to not interact with them at all. which is largely what we see at airports now, which is, I mean, frightening to think about, but that has grown and grown and grown, where we now see constant border, what they call border modernization plans from the CBSA, which all mean more technology and less officers.
Yeah, we have a beautiful facility in Lansdowne, which I know you've seen. It needs more people, though. Technology that's operated by officers include X-ray scanners. How many X-ray scanners could be purchased with $60 million?
I wouldn't have those numbers. We can find out and provide that to you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Because these X-ray scanners are so important for detecting drugs, weapons, even vehicles, which of course is a hot topic. Detector dogs, that's something, and dog handlers, that's something that an investment that the Trudeau government could have made instead of, and that's a technology that in the dogs that can pay for itself, right? In detecting currency, for example.
Absolutely. Our canine teams are vital to what we do. We're short those as well, just like we're short officers. So definitely the money could have been put towards that, yes.
So I just want to be clear. $60 million has been spent on this app. You won't be surprised to hear from me that I don't think that it's money well spent. The Auditor General said that it wasn't good value for Canadians' money. I've heard from your members that it's frustrated them in their ability to professionally execute on their responsibilities to protect our country. Do you think that money should continue to be invested in this app, or should that money be diverted into human resources in the form of frontline border service officers?
Absolutely, the money needs to go toward border services officers. We can do absolutely the full gamut of what's needed at the border, including keeping our community safe. The technologies we have, such as ArriveCAN, simply do not do that.
You've seen all kinds of these committees. You were at committee 18 months ago. I think Ms. Block said at Government Operations. We've had past and present heads of the CBSA. Do you think they're listening?
I hope they are. It's certainly not for a lack of me repeating it over and over. I think there is a definite disconnect, and I spoke to this earlier too, that upper levels of CBSA management rarely, if never, come from the front line. So I'm often having to show or explain to people who've never worked at a border exactly what the gaps are at the border, which can often be an uphill climb. Again, I've had many talks with the current CBSA president. I have hope that there's some listening happening there, but the situation on our front lines at most of our ports of entry is quite dire.
Is the Minister of Public Safety failing frontline CBSA border service officers?
In terms of not having enough of us there, I would say there's a definite failure, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Spot on. Ms. Khalid, you have the floor for 5 minutes, please.
Thanks very much, Chair. I find this line of questioning by my Conservative friend here very interesting, because just this past December, he voted against giving more funding to the CBSA so that they could perform their jobs at the border and be safe in how they do that. Regardless, Mr. Weber, can you tell us what the nature of your job is and what the nature of your union is? How do you support your workers?
Yeah, I'm the president of the union. We support our workers and representing them.
Just point of order, Chair. I apologize for interrupting the witness.
Yes, Mr. Barrett.
Just on the issue raised by Ms. Khalid.
This does not sound like a point of order.
I was happy to vote non-confidence in the government,
thank you,
just like those
Mr.
border
Barrett.
service officers don't seem to have confidence
all right. I've told you all. I'm extending the time here. If you all interrupt me, it's just
funding the CBSA.
Miss
you voted
Khalid,
against them.
Miss
Please
Khalid,
own up
Miss
to it.
Khalid, all right, you're back on the clock, Miss Khalid. Go ahead. I believe Mr. Weber. I think Mr. Weber, you had the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Go ahead, Mr. Weber. You were telling me about the services that you provide to members of the union.
Yeah, we ensure that they're treated fairly, that the rights that they have under a collective agreement are upheld.
Specifically, what kind of things would members come to you for?
Grievances, health and safety representation, really any issue they have where they're not being treated as they should, they come to the union for.
And how many agents do you think had called in on a leave of absence between 2020 and 2021?
I'd be guessing. We could get those numbers for you and provide them. I don't have that.
Interesting.
Would you like those numbers, Ms. Khalid? Sorry, that was an offer. Is that something you'd like?
Yes, I would. I would very much
Thank you.
like to know what those numbers were. So, can you tell us, perhaps, maybe in more general terms, if you don't have specific numbers, what the morale of CBSA agents was like during COVID times? How people were using and abusing the systems, or how they were going through the borders, and how CBSA officers were feeling?
I would say the morale was low. People were frustrated. Again, we had very little ability to enforce anything, so we ended up spending the vast majority of our time at the border trying to get the app to work and trying to get people to complete the app as they needed to. Morale was low then. It's not gotten much better. Obviously, during COVID, people had other concerns and worries as they dealt with COVID in their normal lives.
So you're saying that the morale is still very low? You're saying that the morale is still very low, regardless of whether the app was used or not?
Yeah, the app is low. It's different challenges all the time. Right now, again, it's about staffing. It's about not having a collective agreement. It's
right.
about
So morale is low right now because of various challenges, not just because of an app. Can you perhaps help us understand what kind of training was provided to CBSA officers when using the ArriveCAN app?
Next to none.
You're saying that the ArriveCAN app should not be used going forward. So I'm asking if it's because you think that the app is not good for the border, or if it's that it is replacing our CBSA officers, or that it's impacting them and their mental health, that their ability to work, their low morale, as you've outlined, or is it the cost of the application that you think is too much, and that those resources could be placed elsewhere, which we've seen that the Conservatives have refused to allow for more resources to be given to the CBSA?
Resources are a concern. Obviously, as I said, we need more people as well. It's the security aspect too. When we're expecting travelers to self-declare that they're smuggling, we're asking for a lot of things to be coming into Canada that shouldn't be there. That's essentially what we're doing now.